Time travel, alternate dimensions, and an ending that had me spinning my head faster than it takes my feeding ADC to rage quit. Netflix's insanely ambitious series Arcane has come to an end, but there are several clues that more League of Legends stories are in the works. But before we get into that, consider playing support by liking and subscribing. There's a lot to discuss. As Arcane finishes its final act, the citizens of Piltover find themselves in an all-out war between Noxian warlord Ambessa Medarda and her army of evolved super soldiers. After the events of Act 2, Ambessa made a deal with Viktor, who, after Jayce's attack, has formed this protective cocoon. In exchange for bringing him to the Hex Gate, Viktor will evolve her soldiers, turning them into a force capable of taking over all of Piltover. In episode 207, after Jayce was teleported to an alternate dimension of Piltover, a dimension set in the future, he sees what will happen if Viktor is successful. All of the city and potentially the world of Runeterra will be destroyed. This is why in episode 206 he tries to kill Viktor to prevent this from happening. By the time we reach the finale, however, there are some truly fun twists. Remember that in his early life, Jayce had been influenced by a mysterious cloaked figure. It was this figure that saved him and his mother's life and gifted him this blue rune, which would fuel his love and obsession with Hextech. It turns out this cloaked figure is a markedly older Viktor, one who comes from a dimension where his ultimate goal of, quote, glorious evolution was successful. This Viktor believed by uniting all things under his control, he could end all suffering, but this came at a cost of a dystopian hellscape where every living thing basically come under his control. Viktor later refers to this as fields of dreamless solitude. His quest to end all suffering ultimately led him to learn that what he created was also a world without joy, love, happiness, and choice. So Viktor set about fixing what he created, and to do this he had to travel to different dimensions and set Jayce on a path that would eventually stop himself from becoming this destroyer of humanity. But how did he do this? You'll notice that Viktor gives young Jayce different combinations of runes, and it's ultimately this one, which we'll learn is called acceleration, that sets in motion a series of events that will put an end to Viktor.
I was playing with inversions on Jayce's acceleration rune. How far did you go?
When Echo arrives in this alternate dimension, he arrives in a world where Jayce's apartment explosion resulted in the death of Vi. This is the same explosion we see Powder and Vi escape from in the very first episode of Season 1. So Echo ventures over there and finds these shards from the rune given to this world's Jayce, which just so happened to be this acceleration rune. It was Echo's experimentation with this rune that allowed him to travel back home with the Z Drive, a device that would allow Echo to smash Viktor's mask off, resulting in this moment of realization of what he created. So to make a long story short, if it weren't for Viktor giving young Jayce that specific rune, Echo would never have been able to create the device that stops Viktor in the finale. Jayce and Viktor end up destroying the rune, which results in Viktor's hold over everyone coming to an end. While we never see what becomes of Viktor and Jayce, there are several theories. Perhaps they got teleported somewhere in space or time, or even to a different realm. After all, Singed did say that the cure to death is dependent on Viktor's survival, and near the end we see that Singed is with his little girl Oriana. How can she be alive if Viktor is dead? On the other hand, they both might be dead, having sacrificed themselves to save the world. And Singed, knowing he'll never really be able to save his daughter, made this clockwork version of her. It's kind of ironic that Viktor set his sight on uniting the world, but ends up uniting Zaun and Piltover. In one of the series' final scenes, we'll see that Sevica, a member of the Underground, has joined the Council. So it looks like Zaun will be integrated into Piltover as equals. But speaking of sacrifices, let's talk about Vi and Jinx. At the end of Act 3, they find themselves joining forces to take on an ascended form of Warwick. Long gone is the man they once knew as their father. Vi, the older sister who protected Jinx most of her life, finds herself being the one protected. Jinx saves her sister from a vicious attack from Warwick and sacrifices herself to save her. It's tragically poetic that the very first episode of Arcane sees Vi's parents die with only Vander and Powder left in her life. but here in the finale, she watches them die as well. But are they really dead? There are a few hints to suggest that Jinx especially is still alive. You'll notice as she falls down the Hex Gate, she arms her bomb, the remnants of which can be seen held in Caitlyn's hand as she goes over the Hex Gate schematics. Schematics which show things like air ducts and cooling shafts. Is there a world where she survives, letting her sister believe that she is dead? Jinx has long believed that she's been a literal Jinx on her loved ones. In episode 208, Jinx says to her,
"You're never gonna give up on me, are you?"
I think the only way for Jinx to separate herself from a sister who will never give up is to make her believe that she's gone. And this ties into the very final shot of the series, an airship flying off into the horizon. Could Jinx be on this ship? Remember that the very first time we see Jinx, and I'm referring to Jinx, not her younger version Powder, is on one of these airships. And if we go even further back to Powder, she says this upon seeing an airship.
One day, I'm gonna ride in one of those things.
But what do you think? Is Jinx dead? Let me know in the comments. It's about time we talk about Mel Medarda and the Black Rose Cabal. In Act 2, Mel was captured by this elusive band of mages and sorcerers, but it's in the finale we get some clarity on just what the heck is going on. It turns out Mel is a sorcerer herself, born to be a weapon, hence why the Black Rose Cabal wants her. They want her as a member in their fight against Mbessa and potentially other members of Noxus. You might recall this weird six-eyed raven alongside a bunch of Noxian ships. Ravens are commonly associated with the League of Legends champion Swain, who is one of the 3 leaders of the Noxian Triforix, or Council of Three. This is the current governing body of Noxus run by 3 individuals: Darius, the Hand of Noxus, Swain, the Grand General, and LeBlanc, the Faceless. If you were to ask me where any future League stories are headed, this show has definitely set up a Noxus arc, and the end of Arcane puts Mel in an interesting position. She stops the execution of Caitlyn, but also gets close to her mother, allowing an entity known as the Deceiver to capture Mbessa in this Shadow Realm. In the end credits, this character is billed as Illusionary Sorceress, but both Deceiver and Illusionary are words to describe the League of Legends character LeBlanc. Mel can't have this sorceress killing her mother, and is able to free them, but it's unclear what this sorceress's fate is. I imagine this is some sort of projection or illusion, as her name entails, and this isn't the last time we'll see her. Mbessa, though, looks to be dead. The last we see of Mel, she's on her mother's ship, likely on her way back home to Noxus. She holds her mother's mask and wears this red Noxian robe, indicating that she has taken over her mother's house, soldiers, and fleet. As far as the extent of her powers, I'm sure that's something that will be explored. We know she definitely would be a support class with her abilities of protection, and it's been hinted that she may even be related to the Solari, an organization that believes all life is derived from the sun. Just look at the resemblance to the League item Iron Locket of the Solari. With all this talk of who's dead and who's not, that leaves us with Heimerdinger. He, like Echo in episode 206, was transported to another dimension, but arrived almost 3 years before him. This allowed him to start a completely new life, one in which he says he finally felt what it was like to truly live.
I must say that since I've met you, lad, I've truly lived.
When the anomaly they create to get back home becomes unstable, Heimer goes out of his way to make sure Echo gets back, but in doing so, vanishes. I like to think that Heimerdinger knew this was a sacrifice, having lived a full life over 300 years old and creating a brilliant protege in the form of Echo. He sacrificed himself so that Echo could live. But the more optimistic of you out there might think he transported somewhere else. After all, when Heimerdinger and Echo first went into the anomaly, their timing was completely off from one another. While Arcane has come to an end, that doesn't mean the end for future League of Legends stories. LOL creator Mark Merrill stated the plan was always to continue and expand the universe, with Arcane co-creator Christian Link stating they're already developing a bunch of follow-up projects. In what form these projects take remains to be seen, but my guess is more animation. However, animation that is less labor-intensive than Arcane. The budget for Arcane was apparently insane, and reportedly the reason for its limited 2-season run, so maybe we'll get a more traditional style of animation going forward. Whatever they have planned, I'll be sure to tune in. But until then, I'll be hard stuck in Bronze Forest, someone please help. But what did you think of Arcane? I want to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.